everyone. Before we begin, I want to let you know that this podcast is for informational and inspirational purposes only. The advice and insights shared here are based on my personal experiences and expertise, but they are not a substitute for professional, medical, psychological, or business advice. If you are dealing with a specific issue, please consult a qualified expert. And thanks for watching. I'm excited for today's show, and this is a project that has been close to my heart for quite some time. And when we talk about Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, you may know somebody or you may have been part of the program yourself, but there's a deeper part of this that maybe you don't know about, and it's the spiritual side and the historical side of it. And I have a very dear friend of mine who is coming along to chat about this. And he is one of the major historians of AA. I've seen his work everywhere. Jay Stinnett, thank you so much for joining us. This is an absolute delight for me. An absolute delight. Jay, how long ago have you and I known each other? Let's just set this up.
Well, wonderful thing. Our mutual friend, Julia Cameron, when I asked her, who is the person that I should talk to about really doing some spiritualist investigation with Bill Wilson, she said, you get a hold of Lisa Williams. I called you one day and just bang, we were together in New York, I think 6 weeks later.
Right.
And that was in 2018.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I remember turning up and coming into Stepping Stones, and wow, what an experience. And we'll talk about that. But you have a movie that is about to be launched, which I am very excited for you on this. And it is really delving into the life of Bill Wilson and his spiritual side of things. So we're going to cut to the clip now. I would love you all to see this. And we'll come back shortly and we'll discuss it.
I had no idea who Bill W. was at the time. And I said, I don't know who you were talking about. And then I found out who Bill W. was.
He was a pioneer. Pioneers are people that go places that other people are afraid to go.
The man was an active seeker, always trying to find new ways so that he could grow spiritually.
There are no formal introductions today. I agreed to abide by the rules of Alcoholics Anonymous. Bill, do you want to just start right out by telling us how and when you founded AA?
Yes.
One of the really fascinating things about this man is the white light experience he had that convinced him of the validity of the spiritual side as opposed to the materialist he had been right up until that point.
For the first time, I knew absolute and utter hopelessness. I knew that I had no personal power to go on.
There's no place to go. So what does he do? He yells out, if there be a God, will he show himself to me? And then bang, it happens.
The essence of what happened to Bill Wilson gets lost because it's a cliche.
People love to feel like they've connected, I've found, to some part of his journey.
We end up with this whole new enthusiasm that he tried near the end of his life. A mantra meditation.
I gave him his mantra. 20 minutes passed, the door bursts open, and Bill comes rushing in and he says, this thing works. I said, Bill, it's your first time, take it easy. So,
all human beings, we have a hole in ourselves. Wilson basically said, need to pour some of that spiritual stuff in there. Again, we're back to the 11th step, prayer and meditation. Mm-hmm. I think it's a brilliant, brilliant message.
He said to me later, I never understood the 11th step. I said, what do you mean? You wrote it. He said, no, I didn't write it. It came to me as an inspiration.
And that's because I think his own ideas of the spiritual pathway to long-term sobriety changed and expand on that over the years.
Bill was a good meditator. He understood the role of spirit in a person's life. He was open-minded. This was a new experience for him, and he took to it. It was unusual to be a seeker at that age, but I think that was him, right?
So Jay, what a powerful story this man has. I mean, you know, it's incredible, but how did you get involved in the history of it? Tell me your story of getting into this part of it for you.
Well, the thing that always fascinated me is that I was exposed to the very best of the 1960s. And I was literally raised spiritually in Laguna Beach in 1969, 70, 71 by people that were extraordinarily open-minded and real-life spiritual seekers. And, you know, we're reading Cosmic Consciousness by Bucky. That's from the beginning of the century and the like.
Right.
But alcoholism devastated my family. And so when people started to get sober in my family or started to be involved with the fellowships, it was remarkable. And so I became fascinated about why did this work? I mean, one of the things that people don't understand today is that 90 years ago, alcoholism and drug addiction is a death sentence.
Right.
And yet something happens. A man gets this download, and after some starts and stops and this and that, comes up with a methodology that makes spiritual transformation sustainable. And how does it do that? How do we know that? Because it's transferable. One of the great lines of all times is, comes from the book of James in the New Testament. He says, don't tell me about your faith. Show me the fruits. And so when it comes to Alcoholics Anonymous, it's not about what we might be able to describe or think about or anything like that. It's what are the fruits? And the fruits are that there are all these people walking around unsupervised.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, it's horrible. You got 2 million people just in North America walking around without probation officers or I mean, it's incredible. And there's no central authority. It's for fun and for free. People want it to be a regular organization, but it's not. And I mean, just think of this. They've never taken money from anybody.
Wow.
Ever.
Wow. That's amazing.
It's all self-funded. And when you take a look at the nonprofit world, I mean, it's all about raising money.
Of course.
It's about raising money. And when you do that, what happens? You make compromises.
Yes.
You make alliances. And AA doesn't do that. And then when people want to say people have a problem, and say like right now, there's a lot of people. There's a whole thing of chronic pain that's coming out.
Right.
A lot of folks having it. So what happens? A group of people get together. They apply the AA methodology, the steps, to this problem. And they create this thing called Chronic Pain Anonymous that allows people to get together that have the same problem. So you and I can want to talk to somebody about a problem that they have, but if we don't have the language that those that experience it use,
Right.
it's just being another nice, helpful person.
Right. And I think from what I'm hearing you say is we need community that understand us. We need people that understand us. And I feel like the fellowship and these communities that are gathering together, they're all speaking the same language. They all have an understanding and they know the problems, or they know the difficulties that come and the challenges that may come with having what is happening to them.
Right. The great thing, one of the great things is AA doesn't pretend to be the answer for everyone.
Of course.
Cocaine addicts have their own. The people with food have their own. And it's interesting, like there's a half dozen food fellowships. Interesting,
Right.
there's a half dozen sex fellowships also, but
Oh wow. Yeah.
but the fascinating thing is about language, because language is so limited. There are adjectives that are used in each of these fellowships that vibrationally touch the sufferer in a way that,
Yeah.
I mean, there's even a Cutters Anonymous.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, there's like 157 different.
Yeah.
So anyway, what's fascinating about this? You got these spiritual principles that somehow have produced a liberation from a malady that was unabated, basically, and it's been made available, and it actually works. So my thing as a historian, as a spiritual guy, was to try and find out, where did this come from? And
Of
so I
course.
went back and looked at the spiritual antecedents, and was involved with the Oxford Group and moral rearmament and initiatives for change, and went to India and to Switzerland to get to meet some people that have been using a very the methodology from which AA sprang from, for over 100 years now, and
Wow.
just fell in love with them. Just
Right.
fell in love with them, because when you see people that realize that if there's a problem, they've got a part in it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what the problem is.
Yeah.
It could be labor problems, it could be home problems, all that stuff, and that. The Oxford Group said it's not who's at the table that's the problem. Or not what's on the table is the problem. It's who's.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And why is it that in this world right now we're not able to talk to each other?
Right. Yeah. The one thing I love here that I have learned about Bill through you and through the work that I've been involved with, which we'll talk about shortly, is the authenticity of this man and the way that he is truly, or was truly, aligned in his core principles as being a human being. And when I have had the pleasure of connecting with him, it has been such a delight in so many ways. And what I really love is his fascination and his openness to not just saying it has to be a certain way, to the exploration of bigger sides, such as the spiritual side, the spirit, listening. He had such compassion, is what I see here, and that's just from what I'm picking up from you. I mean, there was such a dedication about him.
Well, and he listened with that intuition. One of the things that's interesting is that when you take a look at this man's letters, and I've had privilege to read thousands now, he never tells people what to do.
Right.
He shares his experience, and he always will then tell some kind of self-deprecating story about himself,
Right.
just to let him know, hey, I'm, and then he'll just encourage him to keep going along. And so in Alcoholics Anonymous, there's this thing called the 11th step.
Right. Yes.
And it's the 11th step is sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand God. Praying only for knowledge of its will for us and the power to carry that out. It's a fascinating thing. It's a tradition where people do not pray for themselves, nor do they pray for outcomes.
Right.
They pray for knowledge and power.
It's amazing.
Now,
And so, I love this when you actually said in there that the steps were inspirational. They were downloads, they were transmissions, they were inspiration. So that tells me that Bill Wilson was channeling spirit or being an open vessel for knowledge that was out of our world in maybe our human mind. It felt like it was really channeled.
all right. Well, one of the great things about people in the fellowship is they get very touchy.
Right.
About Bill and about what he did or didn't do and these kinds of things. So the movement, Alcoholics Anonymous as an organization, has been very, very wise. It's hidden all of that stuff where you hide things from people in conference-approved literature.
Right in front of your face.
In the biography that AA put out about the founder. That's the thing. And also, for folks that are interested, that think that Dr. Bob was just some religious prig, there's Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers. Both of these books have maybe between the two of them about a dozen anecdotes about different things that were done spiritually, about the different types of things. Like, we were at Stepping Stones.
Right. Yes, we were.
Those of you who don't know, Stepping Stones is the repository of all of Bill and Lois's letters and information and all this stuff. And somehow they knew from the beginning that it was really important that every piece of correspondence be tracked. And so everything that he sent out was carbon copied.
Right.
And but anyway,
yeah, it was remarkable.
I'm sorry. It was his home and the like. So just so you know, and it's up in Bedford Hills, New York. Lovely little town. But back to your point, you about him channeling in this book, Passing On. It talks about Bill Wilson being a medium.
Right. Well, he really was.
Yeah.
He was communicating. And, when we went to Stepping Stones, we went in and I was very much, I was in the energy of it. I saw the table he used to tip. I was very blessed to sit at his desk. I was very blessed to sit at the table. And his energy when he communicated with me was just gracious. And I feel that there was such a graciousness about his energy, very welcoming. And truly at that point, I knew so a little bit about AA. I didn't know a lot about it. And, I have been very blessed, and I will say this to you, and I think you know this. I've been very blessed being part of this project.
Mm-hmm.
Just, on the outskirts, because I certainly have not been involved in the movie, but there's certain outskirts that I've been involved in that has actually transformed my life. And it has been a real, and so I can't imagine how he has touched other people's lives, including your own. And you've
Well,
dedicated your life to this.
well, and the really fun thing about this is only the second film ever about this man.
Wow.
And it's dedicated to this idea of kind of breaking open this white light experience
Mm-hmm.
and showing how it was, one of the most important events of the 20th century. Truly,
Right.
truly.
Right.
Now, if you don't mind, this is for the folks that don't have the privilege of knowing you, and the breadth of your gifts. We're out there. We've never met.
That's right.
Didn't know anything about AA, except tangentially. And you didn't even know that Bill Wilson drank.
I had no idea. I didn't know the fundamentals of it. Yes.
And the downloads that you got were fantastic. About
Mm-hmm.
and again, the great thing about your information and what I do as a researcher, it's not that I put any historical credence on the information that we share and the like, but the validity of the emotional tone
Right.
is really something. And it's that tonality that has allowed us to have this wonderful relationship and to really. So let me talk a little bit about this, because there are people maybe that are here on your podcast that are kind of where I was.
Right.
See, I talk about you not knowing anything about AA. Well, I knew everything there is to know about Wilson, except for this one area, this thing of mediums and this and that and another thing. Julia puts you and I together. I fall in love as any reasonable human being would with you, and then I start to go down this thing of reading the books that he read, going out to Lilydale and having experiences there, having some readings with you and the like, and really seeing how broad, deep, and true this particular way of communicating with spirit is.
Right.
On
Right.
a personal level, which then allows me now to talk about it as the same way I talk about wearing glasses.
Right.
Because I have experience now. One of the things that's really important about the fellowships is that they don't define what God is. They
Correct.
want you to have your own relationship with whatever it is, number one.
Correct.
But number two, the respect that is given member to member. There's no hierarchy to this thing. One thing you hear people say AA is a cult. Now, cults have a central authority figure. AA doesn't have one of those.
Right.
Cults want your money. AA doesn't want your money. I mean, they have a cap. You can only give $7,000 a year to the movement.
Oh, really?
No matter how much money you got, that's all.
Wow, I had no idea.
They want it to be a fellowship, not a hierarchy. And, cults want to control your sex life. In AA, we're just delighted if they're just delighted if you're having any, you know.
Right.
You know, so anyway, it's a thing where this personal relationship with the power being central to what's going on and what is going on. It's one person saying, I've been where you've been. I've done what you've done.
Mm-hmm.
You're not alone. And you're not alone as a human being.
Right.
There's something more going on here. Now, what's going on? It's up to you to figure it out. Or for you, you don't even have to define it. You just have to say, okay, something's going on. And then what's really interesting, what sets the fellowships apart, I mean, you take a look at any religious thing, there's a lot of folks that have a confession practice where you talk about what you've done wrong. But the thing that I believe is what sets Alcoholics Anonymous from any other spiritual modality is this thing of amends. See, Dr. Bob, horrible drunk. Bill tries to work with him. He goes and gets drunk again. And then on the day that's the founding day of AA, interesting, the founding of AA isn't the day that Bill has the white light experience.
Right.
Because it's not about him.
Ah.
And the founding isn't the day that he met Dr. Bob. It isn't the day that he met Abby Thatcher, who gave him the message of the spiritual methodology. And it's not the day that Carl Jung talked to the guy who talked to Abby. The founding of AA is the day that Dr. Bob took his last drink.
Oh, wow.
I think that this is a really interesting thing. So here's this guy who's really a bad drunk. I mean, really a bad drunk. And he's a proctologist that shakes.
Oh, wow.
And he's come back from a bender and he's got a surgical procedure that he's got to do. And so his mentor gives him a bottle of ale and a couple of goofballs. Puts the goofballs in the couple of sedatives in the ale and passes it to him on the way to the hospital.
Oh, boy.
Well, so the doctor doesn't shake too much so he can actually.
Oh, boy.
So anyway, he goes in. Wilson had dropped him off at the hospital early that morning. He goes in and he does the surgery, and then he doesn't come back home for like 12 hours. Now, any reasonable person thinks he's out on a run again, right? But he comes back, and when they say, "Where have you been?" He says, "I've been out mending fences." What Bob did was he went out and looked the people in the eye whose trust he had violated and made it right and said, "What can I do to make it right?" Now, you go to any religion in the world, and what they'll tell you is, "Oh, don't do that again."
Of course.
You go into any of the fellowships and they'll tell you, no, you have to go and make that right. Now, you may not have talked to your mother in 35 years. As a woman, I don't have any experience with that, but there may be somebody within the groups that they know a woman who had a similar experience that you put together with that can share how they made that right.
Right.
And this is where the spiritual opening comes that allows that relationship with the 11th step, that praying only for knowledge of God's will and the power to carry that out, to come through. So why this film? It's to try to get people to realize that this channel is available to them, but that you got to do it. You just can't agree with it.
I think, and I am going to share this with everybody. There was a moment I've spoke about our work together where I've been able to communicate with Bill, and I felt very honored. And I remember sitting there with a friend of mine and had a glass of wine in my hand. You know this story, but it's actually very funny. It's coincidental. And I'd been thinking I'd had a lot of problems with migraines, and whenever I drank alcohol, and I loved a glass of wine, you know. And so I was sitting there with a glass of wine, and I was telling her about this project, and she literally looked at me, and she looked at the glass of wine and said, "How's that going for you?" And I went, And she said, and she's a well-known person, and she said to me, she said, I love how authentic you are and in alignment of it, but somehow the alignment of you doing the work and this, not judging me with drink at all, but maybe still, me even just talking about it while I've got a glass of wine in my hand. She raised her arms and went, "How does that work for you?" And that was the last time I drank. And then the following day, I came to visit you. And it was just all aligned, all synchronicity. And I think, what it did is it highlighted the dedication for me that I had to the spiritual industry, because it is an industry, the spiritual movement industry, but also to the work that you and I have done. Because for me, I feel very aligned with his work, and I feel very honored that I've been part of it. And also, I'm so excited about this movie. I've seen it, and I have been privy to it. And it has been, I sat there glued to it. And Jay, you have done a remarkable job bringing to life this person who has transformed so many people's lives.
I said I fell in love with you 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And the great thing about falling in love is that sometimes you actually become friends.
That's right, you do.
I consider you a friend, and to watch your vibration on this become so much clearer.
Right.
And again, it's not a moral issue. It's just a thing that vibrationally you were caused this. And because the reality is that so many of the people that you touch have problems with substances.
Right.
And by you being clear,
right,
in that way, there's an authenticity that's not available when you're being helpful, when you're bringing through.
Yeah.
So
it's been amazing.
I want to say, I want people to know, want you to go. So it's the name of the movie, Bill W. Conscious Contact, number 1. But number 2, I want you to know that we are making this. So the film is there for you to stream at a price, or you can join my channel for a price. But anyone that is doing anything for recovery, if you have a group of 50 or more, we will make this film available for free, because we want people to know that there's a way out that doesn't cost anything, that has to do with becoming aligned spiritually. And that's the reason that we're talking.
I love it. I love it. So thank you, Jay, for joining me on the show. I feel very honored and blessed. And guys, the movie comes out May 2nd. So the movie comes out on May 2nd. We'll put everything in the show notes so you can just click, make it easy for you. And if you do, or if you're listening to this and you feel like, wow, some of this hits home. We'll also put how all the information and everything that you need to get help if you need it or to find some help in the show notes. So please know that there is support for you wherever you decide to look. And you are an amazing man, because I have sent many people your way and you have definitely helped them. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on Hope, Healing, and Transformation. I hope this touched you as much as it's touched me, and I'll see you all again next time. Thank you so much for joining me today. And remember, the information shared on this podcast is meant to inspire and support you, but it's not a replacement for personalized advice from a qualified professional. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who might benefit. And don't forget to tune in next time. Until then, take care and keep believing in something better.